Hello and welcome to Views and Reviews. In this episode, we will be talking about the delayed European Championships now taking place next year. Joining me today is BBC reporter and commentator for the Women's Super League, Chris Slegg. How are you, Chris? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, nice to speak to you.
Yeah, brilliant to get you on. Thanks for your time today. So, the WSL season's just finished. What did you think overall? Obviously, it's being completely different to others previously. What were your overall thoughts about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a great season. Other than obviously the absence of fans, which was such a shame given the growth of the game up until the outbreak of COVID, the amazing crowds we were seeing at the start of last season when they had 38,000 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for Tottenham against Arsenal, and we had crowds of around 30,000 watching Manchester City and also Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. So, I mean, the absence of fans at a time when the game was growing is such a shame. But what we saw on the pitch, to have the title race go to the final day, to have, a relegation battle that went right to the final day, it was a bit of a shame that final day didn't really have the twists and turns at either end that we hoped it might have. Chelsea scoring very early against Reading and kind of wrapping up the title without any ebbing and flowing there. And also the goal that Bristol City conceded so early on against Brighton meant that, it always looked on the day that they were going to go down. So we didn't kind of get the last day drama we really wanted, but at least it went to the final day. And it was a really competitive league. You had Manchester United doing ever so well. They kind of fizzled out towards the end, but at one stage, it almost looked for the first time that the big three really had become a big four, with United joining Chelsea, City and Arsenal. Although by the end of the season, it almost looks actually that those top two, City and Chelsea, had kind of split away really from Arsenal, even that you might almost have a duopoly going forward. But I think what we saw on the pitch was great quality. I think we saw a lot of entertaining games. And yeah, the only drawback was that fans just weren't really able to see any of it other than that brief time in kind of November, December, where a few fans were able to go back into some grounds, depending on where they were in the country.
Absolutely. I think one particular thing fans would have liked to have seen, I'm sure, would have been women's first game at Old Trafford as well. That would have been a momentous occasion. You mentioned as well the growing game, obviously with the WSL deal as well now. Do you think that'll give an even extra boost to the women's game?
Yeah, completely. I think this is a really exciting thing with women's football. When you get into it, it's like there's always another landmark moment, because it can only grow, and it is going to grow hugely. I mean, we're just the tip of the iceberg at the moment. And yeah, the fact that next season the BBC are going to be showing games, league matches on the main channels, the fact that Sky are going to be showing games every match day and are saying, they're going to give it the full Sky Sports treatment, as they put it. They're going to give it the proper build up, the analysis that they give to the men's game, which is something that the BBC doesn't have the time to do on its main channels. I'm sure there'll be that on the red button and online, but when it comes to the actual coverage of the match, as it is with the men's game on the BBC, it has to be more concertinaed, because there are competing demands with the BBC having to be something for everyone. But I think those two, I mean, BT have done a really good job, and obviously they're not going to be part of this deal going forward. But I do think this next TV contract is going to take it to another level, and just to have that exposure, young people just seeing women's football and thinking nothing of it. Whereas for my generation, you only ever saw men play on TV. So that when you get older and you finally see women playing, it strikes you as an oddity. And that's why there is still, I mean, that's not the only reason, but that is why there is kind of a lot of negativity towards it, because for some people, their kind of default setting is, well, this can't be right. I've never seen it. What are women doing playing football? And it's ridiculous that does still exist in 2021. But I can see why it does, because for my generation, you never saw women play football. You saw women play tennis, and you saw women compete at the Olympics, but you never saw women on the football pitch. So the great thing is that for future generations, they're just not going to think anything of it. It's going to be, well, in fact, given how little men's football is on terrestrial TV, you're probably going to be seeing women play more on telly than you're going to see men. For those very many people who can't afford Sky subscriptions for the likes of the Men's Premier League, it's going to be commonplace, and that's a great thing, because then it's not going to be kind of this oddity, this strange thing. Oh, what are these women doing playing football? Because kids will just have seen it from the day they were born, really.
That's the way it should be, I think. Yeah, might as well have even if you can. You mentioned BT as well. They were, of course, the channel that showed the Champions League final on Sunday. Obviously, a bad night for Chelsea, but across the whole season they've been amazing. Obviously, first team since 2007, I think, to get to a Champions League final. So just a bad night for them.
Yeah, first British team since Arsenal, who got to the final in 2007, won the quadruple then, and there was a real chance that Chelsea could do the same thing had they won on Sunday night. Were they perhaps to go on and win the FA Cup? The final, of course, is not going to be until December, but that's not going to happen now. I had high hopes for them, I have to admit, and it really reminded me of the Tottenham against Liverpool final in the Men's Champions League a couple of years back, where Tottenham gave away a penalty inside 20 seconds. And on Sunday night, we saw Chelsea conceding an own goal, after 33 seconds. And they just looked so shocked, so stunned. They just didn't regroup. And before they knew it, the game was away from them. And I just wish that somehow they could have realised that, this is a nightmare start, but we've got so much quality in our ranks, we can make a game of this. But they just let it get beyond them. They looked scared. They looked panicked, as did Tottenham in the men's Champions League final 2 years ago. And, a lot has been made of it, but I think that it is true. Barcelona suffered a heavy defeat a couple of years ago. A lot of their players had been through it. And you kind of hope from an English perspective, from a Chelsea perspective, that those players who suffered that on Sunday night, should Chelsea get back there, what happened will serve them well. It was a real shame, actually, because I think it would have been, it's like the Olympics, right? Winning silver, winning bronze is brilliant. Great achievement for Chelsea to get to the final, brilliant. But the difference in the Olympics between winning silver and gold is huge. And those gold medal winners come back to this country as household names. And had Chelsea won that final, what it would have done for women's football in this country would have been, honestly, unquantifiable. It would have been on news. It would have been on the network news all day on Monday. Those players would have become household names. And what they've achieved should never be forgotten. They've won the Conti Cup. They've won the WSL. They could go on and win the FA Cup. They got to the Champions League final, which is brilliant. It's a step ahead. And Emma Hayes has said that. I think Emma Hayes' quote was brilliant. We're the second best team in Europe. We'll take that. Yeah, and it's brilliant. She is an amazing manager. Much has been made of her communication skills as well. And I'm sure she would have been the perfect person with those players on Sunday night to have gone through that, because she will make sure that she uses it to the positive. And as much as you can, a 4-0 defeat, but I really think she will take the positives from that in a way that many other coaches might not be able to. So a real shame from an English perspective, from a WSL perspective. But obviously Barcelona played some amazing stuff, were well worthy of the win. And it's great to see, what we've seen from Spain on the international front as well, that another nation is coming to the forefront of the women's game after we've seen these years and years of Lyon dominating, that we are now getting a more competitive Champions League.
Do you think the Euros being postponed from this year will actually benefit in 2022? Because obviously then there's no focus on comparing it to the men's game and the Olympics. Like the only thing they'll have next year is the Commonwealth Games, but that's a totally different sport, obviously. So,
yeah, I mean, I originally thought they could have been really brave and actually done something completely original and held the men's and women's Euros at the same time. But actually, I do think they've made the right decision, UEFA. I do think it's right that it's been knocked into next year. And I do think actually it will benefit from having that time to itself, rather than perhaps you might get it kind of lost amongst the men's tournament. So I think, again, at the end of another season where there will have been great exposure, it's going to be awesome to have Euro 2022 hosted by England next summer. Hopefully England, from a selfish perspective, will do well. Hopefully the home nations together at the Olympics this year in Tokyo as Team GB can do well. I mean, if they were to win a medal, I think it's going to be a tall order. I think it's really hard. It would be hard enough to do it as England, but I think to bring a team together kind of from nothing, to have this very limited squad size that they have in the Olympics of just 18 players, unless that's going to be changed for COVID, I'm not sure. I think it'll be really hard for Team GB to get a medal. But if they do, that again will be a great thing looking forward to Euro 2022. But I think it's going to be, I mean, I worked on Euro 2005 when England hosted it, and there was a real buzz then. And women's football was nothing then compared to what it is now in regards of the exposure it got. I just think that it's going to feel a bit like Euro 96 did when we hosted the men's tournament. And back in 96, football was still seen as just a men's sport. I think we're really going to have that proper, for the first time, proper whole nation buzz about a women's football tournament. And, you know, you look what happened in the World Cup a couple of years ago, England getting to the semi-finals, the fact that it was in France and a lot of the time difference wasn't great. So a lot of people here were able to watch games. And to think that 11 million people watched that England-USA semi-final on the BBC. I was working that night for BBC London, and it was the first time they'd shown an England women's match on the big screen in Battersea Park, and there was a decent crowd down there watching it. Now, to think that was, you know, that was a first, I think that'll be COVID permitting. You know, hopefully we're going to be back towards something like normality next summer. I think it'll be pretty commonplace that there's going to be games on big screens and people gathering to watch them. So, yeah, I mean, I can't wait. I think it's an exciting summer this summer that we're going to have. You know, so many games at Wembley, 8 games now. It's a real shame that probably none of them are going to be full because there's still going to be COVID limitations. Let's hope, you know, by next summer that we're in a situation where we could have full stadiums for the women's Euros.
Absolutely. And obviously you mentioned that it's going to be in England as well. Do you think that will give the England team an extra boost they'll need, or do you think could hamper them? But well, I mean, obviously we won't know, but sometimes it can go either way, can't it?
Yeah, I do. It should help. It really should help. But as we kind of saw a bit last night, I do think often with English teams, you know, English teams and England teams, men's teams, that sometimes the pressure can just get too much. And that would be my fear, that the build-up that we're going to have and the expectation. And actually, we saw that a bit at Euro 2005 for people of my age, where England hosted it and we went out in the group stage. And there was such a build-up to what this would mean for England and how England could. This is a problem for women's football. Is it's not only have you got the expectation, you've then got this added kind of burden that, oh, you've got to do this for women's football. You've got to do this to help us take it to another level. You know, which men's teams don't have to worry about that. They got the national expectation of actually winning the thing, but for women's teams, they've got this kind of added responsibility. It is seen that they've got to do something for the women's game. And at Euro 2005, England won the first group game. They threw away a 2-0 lead, but then Karen Carney, a very young Karen Carney, I think she was 17, scored the winner in injury time, and we beat Finland 3-2. But then we didn't manage to win either of the other 2 games, and we were knocked out in the group stage. And that was such a disappointment. And my fear next summer is that I certainly think England have got the talent. And, in Sarina Wegeman, the new coach who won the Euros with Holland, with the Netherlands in 2017, who took them to the World Cup final in 2019, we've certainly got a very, very good coach. But it's just whether the pressure and the expectation will get to them. But then, having said that, Wegeman, given she was coach of the Netherlands as hosts. She'll be the perfect person to make sure, because I mean those crowds we saw in the Netherlands a couple of years back, well 4 years back, was stunning. You know, there was a lot of expectation for that team to do well, and they didn't let it get to them. So hopefully England can do the same next summer. I'm confident they can get to the latter stages. Whether they can actually win it, I mean, as England fans, we're not used to seeing our teams, our senior teams, win anything. But hopefully, maybe this summer with the men or next summer with the women, we can finally end that long wait.
Yeah, you mentioned there actually Savina Weigman. Obviously, it's Hege Riise at the moment, but Savina's going to take over from Phil Neville. Do you think by the time the Euros does come around, she will have had more than enough time to be with the squad and obviously do better than Phil Neville did, even though he did a pretty good job?
Yeah, I mean, my hopes are high for her, and I think, you know, international football is always the complaint from head coaches, understandably, is that they don't get enough time with their players. But just the experience that she has, you know, it's great. The FA have really gone out there and got a top, if not the top candidate. I don't think Phil Neville did as bad a job as many people do, but she is much better placed, and she is much more worthy of this position in that he didn't originally apply for the job. He didn't really have any coaching experience. I think he still did well. I think he actually did help raise the profile of women's football, because he kind of took it to a wider audience. Again, this is something that is almost not really fair on the women's game, because it is trying to grow. The decision makers sometimes make decisions like that, and you can kind of see why they do. And I do think his appointment had many benefits, but I certainly think she's a better coach, better manager. And I would say if we're ever going to win something, it's going to be under someone like her. So yeah, hopes are high, really. I think, you know, yeah, you'd ideally you'd want a whole qualifying cycle, I guess, but given the demands over the recent seasons with COVID and the fixture congestion and fixtures being called off left, right, and centre, you know, every country's been through it, really. No one's had a good build up. No one's going to have had an ideal preparation. So, you know, I think that 1 year in post or one season in post is going to be enough for her, or kind of as much as anyone's really going to be able to get. So, yeah, I'm really positive that there's going to be a good showing from England next summer.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today. You've been absolutely fantastic.
No, pleasure to speak to you. It's great what you're doing. Keep doing it. It's interesting stuff. Yeah, I'll look out for the YouTube shows that you're doing. Well done.
No worries. Thank you for having me on.